morning, dear students. Today we are going to learn about senescence. What do you mean by senescence? First, we are going to see a definition. Senescence is simply it is a process of biological aging. Biological aging to what? For a cell means at the cellular level as well as to the organismal level. For organism as well as to the cell, this aging is happening. That state is senescence. And how we can understood that a cell is in senescence phase? It is characterized by gradual loss of function. That cell will lose its function, its regenerative capacity. Each cell have its own innate ability to heal off some damages. So that regenerative capacity will gradually lose, and also it become more and more susceptible to disease, because it may affected by so many diseases so easily. Its ability to defend to get some disease, that also dwindle after means years and years. So that situation is senescence, biological aging phase. There are certain steps in that aging process. We can see one by step, each step one by one. First one is the causes of age associated damage. That's the primary step. Later we will see what is happening in each step. Now let's have a glance over what all those steps one by one. Second one is the response to damage. Response means some responses are happening in the cell to means cope up with that damage. So that is response to damage, antagonistic action done by the cells. And the third is the consequences of responses. Because of that response, what consequences will happen to that cell? That is integrity. Integrity means what? Integrity means incorporating or associating so many so many things together to make to bring about something effective. That is integrity. So these are the main steps that's happening in aging senescence. And let's see what is happening during each step. Causes of age associated damage, that is the primary step. So, if we take such a type of cell, um, uh, not such a type, if we are taking the case of any cell, there will be some sources of damage. Each and every cell is subjected, it is exposed to some sources of damage, and that sources, it will gradually accumulate inside that cell. Which are those sources? Which are those factors that is damaging that cell? Let's see. Some mutations, DNA breaks, DNA modifications, telomere attritions. Telomere attritions, I don't know whether you know it or not. Telomere is the end portion of the chromosome, and after each round of DNA replication, it stands for it to get shortened. There is an intern means some innate mechanism exists inside each cell to cope up with that chromosome shortage. Anyhow, after so many rounds of replication, that telomere or chromosome shortening may happen, and that also in some extent causing damage to the entire setup of the cell. So these are some sources that is damaging these cells. These sources, these damaging reasons, they get accumulated in the cell, in a particular cell. And later, next phase, I told you it is response to damage. As this damage is accumulate in the cells start to respond. That responses are called biological response. Suppose think that the cell is fully packed with damages. If this cell keeps on dividing, this damage will proliferate. This the extent means the amount of damaged cell, the number of damaged cell will increase. So to prevent, what will be the biological response? Mainly to enter the senescence phase. That is, I mean, simply, if you are telling what is senescence, it is a permanent cell cycle arrest stage, because that cell is no longer going to divide. It will not continue its cell cycle. As it halt its cell cycle, there will no longer further increase of this type of damaged cell in our body. So that is a response, or there is a one way to cope up, to handle or to prevent the proliferation of that damage to more and more parts of that organ. So to prevent its proliferation spread, that cell that accumulate damage, it enter in a phase called senescence, that is permanently stopping the cell cycle. Then after that, as this number of cells that stop its cell cycle, or the number of cells that reach the senescence, uh, as it increase in number, it causes inflammation in that organ or tissue, and may gradually it can lead to tissue dysfunction. Okay, and in the beginning phases that inflammation happens there, the body activated its immune system and try to correct that inflammation, and to save that cell from means permanent destruction. But at the time of chronic inflammation, our immune system itself cannot mend that. Immune system failed to correct that inflammation, and in that situation, that may lead to that tissue's damage. Okay, and as that affected cell die, what will happen next? The neighboring or the nearby cells take up its function, and what they need to do, they need to work hard and as they works hard, that will give stress. It builds up the cellular stress or exhaustion, the strain, it's giving strain. And as this condition, as all this strain, everything prolonged for a long time is not good for our body. So at first, these responses means trying to correct that inflammation, and other nearby cells taking up the function of the dead cells, affected dead cells. All those responses are at first, the initial phase, we can treat those steps, responses, as a protective measures. But as the organism, or as that person become aged, because as he grew older and older, these responses, it becomes weak, and it cannot, to certain extent, it cannot handle all these damages, and it may lead to aging of that organism. Okay, and so that's happening in this response to damage step. The antagonistic step. Antagonistic in what sense? Antagonistic to damage. The cell is trying to do something, and in the beginning phase, all those things looks like a protective action. And as that organism becomes older and older, these responses, it gives more and more stress to that organism, and that organism may fall to the aging process. Okay, then consequences of that responses, that is what we are going to see, as the body keeps on responding to damage for long. So that's what I told in the former slide. Then it brings about so many effects. Aging phenotypes. What all phenotype is happening to a person or a cell, as that thing become older, all those phenotypes start to appear, and the tissues, our organs, our systems, they all start to decline. Their means level of performance start to decline as we get older, as we are becoming aged and aged. So the in this way, senescence is grabbing our life. Okay, it is swallowing. In another way, we can tell it. It is so gradually swallowing the life of a person or a living being. Okay. Next, what impact the senescent cells are means causing to the nearby cells. The senescent cells, it can secrete certain chemicals, chemokines, cytokines, and metric proteases, and all these things it result in the formation of SASP. SASP means senescence associated. Look, senescence associated secretory phenotype means because of the secretion of these things it creates a micro environment that becomes favorable for the development of some diseases like cancer and some other things. So even if it is to some extent a protectory, later in the time it may lead to the development of some serious diseases. Okay, SARS is known to contribute to cancer and the aging process. So that's the thing that these senescent cells produce these things, and this presence of these chemicals, it creates a micro environment inside the tissue, and it will help to develop cancer. And how can the medical field to handle this situation? By the use of senolytics. Look that senolytics. Senolytic is a group of drug. It's a class of drug. What it is doing? It focuses in the destruction of what type of cells, senescent cells. To means these cells are resistive to for its death. So destruction of these type of cells is the ultimate solution to prevent the secretion of these type of things that is causing cancer, or these are things that is leading to aging process. Then we are going to have a look through so many factors that is causing senescence. Senescence can be triggered by a variety of factors. And these factors actually are responses against some damages. Okay. Anyhow, let's see which are those causes. First is telomere shortening. Telomere, I already told you, telomere is the end portion of the chromosome, and it acts as a cap, and as DNA replication rounds keeps on repeating, because of some reason they stands for the shortening of the length of the chromosome, shortening of the length of the chromosome after each round of replication. That shortening is prevented because of the presence of this telomere. Even if that telomere is there to prevent this shortening, then also after so many rounds of division, that chromosome's length may reach to a certain size, that in that size if it further divide, will not be good for that cell, because it may lead to serious damages for that cell. In that situation, that cell will move to that phase, which phase? Senescence phase. So telomeres are actually protective caps that present at the end of the chromosome that prevent the shortening of the chromosome after each cell division. And when the chromosome, as it overcome this protection, when it becomes too short, then to prevent the proliferation of such a type of cell with some damages, that cell enters this replicative senescence phase to prevent DNA damage. If it further divide, if that cell further divide, again the shortening of the chromosome DNA happens. That further shortening means some genes are losing, and some important functions are losing, and may lead to the formation of a malformed cell. So as a whole, altogether. That effect need to be prevented. For that, the only alternative is to let that cell to enter this senescence phase. Okay, so that is a natural part of aging. So that is one uh, cause for senescence. Next one is DNA damage. DNA damage also is a reason that lead for a cell to enter the senescent phase. Through whichever way that DNA damage is causing because of radiation, oxidative stress, or because of the presence of so many toxins, this DNA damage may happen. And when this DNA repair mechanism, if a cell vessel and its DNA is damaged, inside the cell, so many mechanisms exist to correct that DNA damage. If the DNA repair mechanism system exists in the cell can't fix this damage, then the next solution for that cell to enter into the senescence phase to prevent the further proliferation of such a damaged cell in our tissue or organ. Okay. So next is oxidative stress. Because of our all metabolism, some compounds, molecules are forming. They are called reactive oxygen species, ROS. And this ROS is in a limited level. It is beneficial. It is helping so many physiological processes in our body. But when its level increases, it do harm to our body. It may result in the development of cancer, so many serious diseases. So that's not good. It gives stress. That is called oxidative stress because of the high level of ROS, and the body can't detoxify that accumulate the peak level of that ROS. High level of ROS can bring about damage to cellular components like DNA, proteins, lipids, and the only solution for that cell to enter into the phase called senescence. The next reason is oncogene. Each and every cell contains certain genes that can cause cancer, and normally it is kept silenced. Accidentally, these cells become activated, triggered. In that situation, the only solution for that body or the organ to keep this cell in senescence phase to prevent the further proliferation of such a cell having this cancer gene activated. So that is another reason for senescence. Oncogenes are means those genes that can bring about cancer, and if it is mutated or overexpressed, it will lead to cancer. So somehow these oncogenes, examples RAS and MEK, if it is triggered, the only solution to keep that organ safe to pull that cell to the senescence phase. Then mitochondria, we know that it is an energy house, and also it can generate ROS as its byproduct as an end result of metabolic pathway. And metabolic pathway mainly oxidative phosphorylation. We know that oxidative phosphorylation is happening in mitochondria as an end product, byproduct. ROS is forming in the mitochondria, and this dysfunctional mitochondria lead to increased level of ROS. Reactive oxygen species level will increase in the case of some mitochondria which functions abnormally, and this led to oxidative stress and DNA damage. So only solution for that cell that is having a malfunctioned mitochondria is to enter to the senescent phase. Then epigenetic changes like DNA methylations and also histone modification. DNA methylations are very important for the cell for keeping some cell silenced or some cell active. Histone modification also is a part of that for the gene expression. And without some these changes sometimes can impair a gene's function, or sometimes because of that modifications, it will promote the expression of some senescence related genes. As these senescence related genes express because of such type of modification, they will be pushed to senescence. So that is another reason. Then chronic inflammation. I told you that in response to so many preventive measures to handle, to cope up with the damages that body, there's some inflammations will happen in the cell, and if that inflammation persists, to some extent our immune system can heal those inflammation. But if it fails and that inflammation persists, in that situation, it will cause DNA damage and oxidative stress. Okay, and this inflammation is associated with some age-related diseases, and ultimately it can lead to senescence in tissues. Next is a cellular exhaustion. A cellular exhaustion means the tissue, if we take the case of a particular tissue itself, is repeatedly dividing to maintain its functions. For example, some cells like immune cells, stem cells, they need to keep on dividing repeatedly. But after certain rounds of division, there is limitation for anything, everything. So after reaching a certain number of division, it may exhaust, and then it's means then only thing it can do to enter into this senescence phase. Why it enters that senescence phase after so many multiple rounds of divisions, replication? There is chance to get some, to accumulate some damages in that genetic that cell's genetic material, and that also not good to divide that cell any further with that damages. So in that situation too, the best option is to enter into the senescence instead of proliferating with that damage. So as a whole, if we make an overlook, senescence is a protective mechanism over so many potential threats like cancer, tissue damage. However, that senescence means irresponsive cells, that is inactive. If the number of such cells accumulate, and when that accumulation happens as that person or cell becomes older and older, it contribute to dysfunction. That's where older people, their systems are getting weaker and weaker. So senescence in that way, it becomes a problem only if a person or cell become older age, and it will, these all things ultimately will bring about age related diseases. So that's the thing, senescence. I hope what is senescence, how it is causing, what's the reason, what are the steps, all thing is clear to you. With this I am going to stop this section. Thank you.
I'm an icon, man. And my girl about a 10. I should fuck her in the Benz.